Okay, so to get us started, you have your note cards, right? Everyone needs their note cards. You can either turn them in online, like pictures of them, or you can come show me while you're doing your oral exam. Either way, everyone needed their note cards today, but only the people taking the test, oh my gosh, tomorrow. Only people taking the test tomorrow need to take the oral exam. So that would be Sammy and Kaylee and Audrey and Christiane and Asher and Race and Sydney. Everybody else doesn't need to do the oral exam today. That being said, I still think it's a good idea to study these. So everyone for about 5 minutes now, I know you've been doing this before class too, but for about 5 minutes, I'm going to give you time to look through your cards again, last minute little cram session. When we do the oral exam, I'm gonna ask you 5 questions from your cards. So I'll just be looking through them and I will say something like, okay, tell me a quote from Streetcar Named Desire. What year was As I Lay Dying written? What's a theme from Crime and Punishment? Something like that. So you just need to kind of know what's on your cards. All right, 5 minutes. I keep convincing my sister's having a baby. It turned out to be a boy now, so I guess it can't be Dewey Dell, but I was trying for months to convince her to name her Dewey Dell. I was like, it'd be so good. And her last name's Brindle. So Dewey Dell Brindle. How good is that?
That's so good. That's so iconic. Like Barterman.
All right, you don't want Dewey Dell? Barterman.
Barterman, like, you have to give him a worse one.
Yeah, you could be Dewey Doug. I just like the double letters, the alliteration.
The dog did that.
Favorite childhood Lord of the Flies.
I would. Why name him Wilson?
Wilson.
I kind of like it. Wilson Whitney.
I just like how thick this back is.
His middle name, Woodward.
Ooh, I don't know. All right. So I have a bunch of major works passages here. The reason it's so thick is because they list all the books that they're thinking you could use. But again, you can use whichever books that you want on these, right? So here's the first one. It says, many works of literature depict complex friendships that contribute both to a character's growth and to challenges the character faces. Either from your own reading or list below, choose work of fiction with complex friendships that contributes both to a character's growth and to challenges the character faces. Then in a well-written essay, analyze how the friendship contributes to an interpretation of the work as a whole. Again, interpretation of the work as a whole is always code for theme. They want you to have some kind of theme in there. So there's a bunch of things listed here. Let's see, things you've read. Great Gatsby. Pride and Prejudice. The only one from our class is Pride and Prejudice, right? But I think this complex friendship thing, just like houses, just like all of the prompts, you can interpret that how you want. So you can make the case that Blanche and Stella are friends. You can make the case that Piggy and Ralph are friends, right? There's all different friendships. Raskolnikov, I think actually is Crime and Punishment on here. No, but Raskolnikov and Razumikin are definitely friends. Like, I think that all of our books could fit into this. Yes.
You consider Dewey Dell and Al friends?
I think that one's a stretch. I think that one they might say, I'm not sure she answered the prompt. I think she just wanted to write about Dewey Dell and the cow for whatever essay she came across. So what I want you to do, I'm going to give you some lined paper. You're going to choose whichever book you want to write about. You're going to write a thesis and an outline for that little book. And the outline, I just want, bullet points of what your different paragraphs would be. And while you're doing that, I'm going to call people back to my desk to do the oral exam.
Does it have to be a book on this list, or can it be one of our books?
Oh, one of your books. Yeah, you should, sorry, to be clear, you should definitely choose one of your 4 books that you have, that you know really well. If it comes to test time and you're just like, I really want to write about a different book that I didn't prepare for, I don't, that's your choice, but I do recommend you do one of the books that you prepared for. Hopefully you'll get a prompt where you can though.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about the ending of Streetcar Named Desire.
So essentially Blanche gets sent away to a mental asylum because essentially Stanley's trying to discredit her from like whatever
Yep.
nonsense she's spewing.
Yeah.
And then like Stanley goes over to like Stella and like kind of her surrounding her and like it's okay.
Yes.
You'll be okay. Well, like
Yes.
starting to get a little sexual. Kind of weird.
Yep, it is weird. All right. How about the beginning of As I Lay Dying?
Addie Bundren is watching her oldest son Cash build a coffin for her.
Mhm.
Dewey Dell is in the woods with her. With it's not quite clear.
Yeah. Do
Their
you remember what the
relation- his-
boyfriend's name is?
His name is Leif.
Leif. Good.
Martiman's fishing. He gets a fish. He really likes that fish. That'll be important later.
Okay.
Um,
How about Darl and Jewel? What are they up to? You remember?
um,
It's okay if you don't remember, but
what? I don't remember off the
that's
top
okay.
of my
It's not
head.
on your card, so it's fine. But they're kind of just like walking. It's a really
Oh, yeah.
interesting little scene where like Darl is just watching Jewel walk straight through the barn instead of around the barn. Okay. But again, doesn't really matter. Okay. How about, where are your quotations? I want to quote from As I Lay Dying. There we go. Quote from As I Lay Dying.
I am a tub of guts. There's also my mother is a fish.
Yeah, I'm a tub of guts. It's so good.
It's one of my favorites.
How about an image or symbol from Lord of the Flies?
The Lord of the Flies.
Okay, what does he symbolize?
Satan.
Okay, good. And how about the setting of King Lear?
It's like England in the early 1600s. So that's like end of Renaissance, beginning of Victorian era. It starts in like it's royal family, so it starts in King Lear's castle. I think I forgot to mention that on the card. I mentioned it's in England, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. The one thing though is it was written 16th century, but it was kind of historical fiction. So it's about 11th century.
Okay.
And we know that because of like the paganism and how it's like there's no Christianity in King Lear. They're all talking about the gods and whatever. So let's do some characters in King Lear too. So what's the bastard's name in King Lear?
It's Edmund.
And what's his brother's name?
Edgar.
Perfect. Well done. Okay, 30 out of 30. All right, let me get Kale back here. Oh shoot, Sammy, I recorded that. I didn't mean to. Okay, now you're doing some self-reflection about which one of your essays you would rather read. So write down which one you'd rather read and why. And you're trying not to base that just on what book you like better, but actually which one you think will make a better essay.
Oh, that's cute. It's only 12 episodes. And it's like Heartstopper's only 8.
Okay, who got through all of them? Make sure you guys did in the middle here, right? Did you guys get a chance to explain the essays? Are you done? Did you? Okay, keep going. How about you guys? Okay, keep going, keep going.
14 is coming out soon.
Oh,
Exactly.
Dude,
Oh my gosh! It's a cow, girl. It's a cow. It's a cow.
Ever
You
since
can
my
make
dad
the
was
third
born,
episode.
It's a cow.
She could be friends
Tom
with the
Twisted.
cow.
Sammy is like-
Aren't you friends with the cow? No, they're my children.
Well, let me tell you. If you try that,
You know,
So they can talk very different. Because the cow
I
don't
needed
eat it.
her by name to
and just to kind of
and he's like,
That's
tour around.
fun.
Yeah.
It might not be English.
They don't play the actual like credits theme, they just like go straight to credits, just because that would spoil it.
I don't think it's our clue.
Have a song that would hear them play the song for you.
Yes, I mean, if you could do it, I would use See the 5 on it, I do. I would go, ha ha ha.
After tomorrow, I'm gonna write so many.
I would say it's Sarah. Yeah,
I use like legal cop. You show up and your lawyer is decked out. Big ass hair, metallic makeup. It's like.
He's got like skull and
Okay, I am gonna cut you off now. So what, did anybody choose, or did anybody get feedback that their second idea might be the better essay? Okay, just curious. And that doesn't mean that you should like really stress out over like, oh no, would this have been the best one to write? Like, obviously go with your gut. The first one that you chose is probably on the test, the one that you would just write about, right? All of these could be equally good. But what, just to visit that idea of like which one was the better essay, what made people more interested in one essay over the other? Yeah.
Having read the book or not.
Oh, interesting. So if they've read the book, they're like, oh, I want to hear more about the book that I know. Yeah. And when you're writing, just assume like whatever, just assume that your AP reader will have read the book. I am not positive how they do this because I haven't done it before. I assume that they give the essays to people who have actually read the book. I can't imagine that they're grading essays about books they haven't read. So that part, you'll be good. They'll have read the book, so they'll be interested that way. Yeah. Oh, Kale first.
I was just gonna say, I
Oh.
looked up how to grade it and it's, sorry. And it's they pass it to someone who has.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so then we don't have to speculate. All right, good. Kale,
My first thesis was less on point than my second.
what does that mean on point?
It, like, my first thesis was a bit more vague.
Oh, okay.
It was a bit broader and harder to tie into the prompt. The
Okay.
second one was more.
So the ones that are more specific and the ones that are answering the prompt more specifically too, about like exactly what made the friendship complex and how that ties to a theme. I like that. Audrey?
The less they had to do to justify how it fits with the prompt was the one that was better, the one that had less justification.
Ah, interesting. So if you were trying to write a paper about Dewey, Dell, and a cow, and you had to have so much justification, that actually hurts the paper. On the other hand, if you go too obvious, you might be in danger of kind of boring your reader. If it's just, oh, everyone would talk about this friendship and everyone would talk about it being complex in this way, then readers might be like, okay, I've read a million of these by now, but it still needs to fit, and it still needs to, you don't want to spend your whole paper justifying why we count Darl and Jewel as friends rather than just brothers. Okay.
I think one thing that helps with that, or at least when I was looking at the outlines, is like when the theme that they picked was like one that everyone's like, yes, that is a theme in the book. And then they found a unique way to tie the friendship into that theme.
Ah, good. I like that. So it's like you're not telling them something that they don't know about the book in terms of what the book's meaning is, but you are telling them something about how the literary strategy fits into the book's meaning. I got it. Yeah, Sammy?
Kind of the use of showing how their friendship like complements each other, and then their goals together as the friendship, and then the conflict of that goals, I think provided a really good.
Yeah, it kind of seems like part of what's good there is that you're not just trying to say, oh, friends like each other sometimes and they don't like each other sometimes, but you're trying to show like multiple facets of the friendship or the development of the friendship, so that the thesis kind of has a little bit of movement, and you can see how the person could be talking about the beginning, middle, and end of the book with your theme. That's really important too, because like I said, it's like you guiding them through the book, right?
one thing that both me and Nick did was we provided like a contrast, I guess, to the main friendship that we're focusing on, and then having another friendship that occurs in the book, but it's different, and so it kind of supports, but also gives that contrast that like makes it more significant.
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That it's like complexity in, again, the devices. Did anyone find that their theme that was more complex got them more interest? I kind of think that that's true for me. When I see a theme that, yes, it's true, I believe that this theme is in the book, that they didn't misread the book, but that's offering me another little insight into the book that I didn't always think of, that made me excited to read a paper. So if it was like, I can't remember, Michaela, what was your paper about Jewel? I can't remember, but I thought it was like that.
Oh, wait.
It was something where your theme, I was like, yes, that is in the book. I get that. But more likely, I would hear people talking about Darl with that theme. And Michaela chose to talk about Jewel with that theme and how Jewel kind of added nuance to the theme. And that made me more excited to read the paper. So as you're going into it, I think sometimes the danger is, I'm going to write about the thing that would be easiest to write about. Like for me, because I've read it so many times and because it just seems the most obvious to me, it'd be like Gatsby. Did anybody choose Gatsby for theirs? Yeah, I think like, I want to go into this. I could write the Gatsby paper. Nick and Gatsby are definitely complex friends, but I feel like I personally couldn't write many people can write a nuance. I'm not saying yours is a nuance there, but I couldn't necessarily write a nuanced argument about that because I would just go for the obvious. They're complex and it causes Nick to, question his career goals. There we go. What I would rather do though is look at somebody like, I don't know, Stella and Blanche, who have this like real push and pull with each other, where it's like Stella obviously loves Blanche, but also is ignoring Blanche's needs. And Blanche obviously loves Stella, but also finds Stella as like a great like platform for her to push herself up and like see herself as better than. So I like the nuance there. I would say go with the nuanced book that you can write about, because it gives you more to write about, but it also is going to capture people's interest. All right, but that being said, that's a kind of a gut reaction. Go with whatever book you feel like you can write about in the moment, because you only have 40 minutes, right? We are going to do this backwards now. So choose the book you know the best out of the four. Which one would you just be so happy to be able to write about? Okay, last time I did As I Lay Dying. This time I want to do Streaker. Okay. And on that same white piece of paper, I'm hoping you have space on the back now. You are going to do a little bullet point list of everything that happens in that book. Now, obviously, this could go on forever. You could spend the whole class period bullet pointing the plot. Let's aim for having 15 tops bullet points. Yes. Yes, you can. Yeah. All right, so we're just gonna have a bullet point, like I'm gonna have Blanche arrives in New Orleans. She meets with Stella and they talk about age and beauty and Stanley. Like little bullet points like this. So bullet point out your plot of your book with the points that you think are important. Yeah, a little more than 15. But. Okay, just because a couple people are finished, I'm gonna show you the next step, but keep doing yours. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go through each of these bullet points. And you're going to add what the book does to, like, with its form to establish that plot point. So you're basically going through and saying, oh, what literary technique or what sort of like aspect of the novel do I notice in each section? Because right now we have the story. This story could be told anyway. This could be a song, this could be an opera, this could be a ballet, it could be a movie, right? But you want to point out why this is in my case, a play. What qualities kind of make up the story. So for example, Blanche arrives in New Orleans. I want to talk about Elysian Fields. I want to talk about like racial mixing in the description. What's it called? Come on, play people. What is that called? Stage directions. There we go. I want to talk about that in the stage directions. Meets with Stella and they talk about age, beauty, and Stanley. I really want to focus on symbol of light here, but I also could touch on the alcoholism that is like kind of like implied in that scene. So you're just adding in the literary details now. Okay, give it a shot. Okay, all right, I'm gonna cut you off here for a second. Obviously, you would not do this on the test. I don't want anyone to be confused that you would go through this whole process. But I think doing it backwards kind of shows just how much you can say about the book. Now that you've like reviewed these 4 books, you know them really well. I've taught this book for a few years, but I was actually surprised at how many quotes I could pull out for each section, like where I was like, oh yeah, there's God, Stella calling it thrilling, luck is believing you're lucky, tiger, tiger, and using the word, maybe you wouldn't be so bad to interfere with. Like, I know this book now, you know your books now. And there's all of this literary detail that you could talk about. And what's cool is you get these prompts that on the major works essay, you can usually fit a lot of this stuff into the essay. You could fit a lot of details into this. So go to the 4th prompt in this packet. I've numbered them so you can see which one's 4. I think this prompt works with every book, at least every book of quality, because if you don't have any ambiguity in your book, it's not usually considered a classic book. It's usually pretty boring. So it says morally ambiguous characters, characters whose behavior discourages readers from identifying them as purely evil or purely good, are at the heart of many works of literature. Either from your own reading or from the list below, choose a work of fiction in which a morally ambiguous character plays a pivotal role. Then, in a well-written essay, I just love that, analyze the character, how the character can be viewed as morally ambiguous and how the moral ambiguity contributes to an interpretation of the work as a whole. Now, for this one, the one little peculiarity is they only want you to talk about one character. That doesn't mean that you can't bring other characters in to talk about how they're foils or how they highlight the ambiguity, but you're focusing on one character. And they give you a list, but again, this is one of the prompts that I think applies literally to any book. Does anyone have a book that they did this for that they're worried like, no, there's no ambiguity in this? Yeah, like all of them, right? Characters do bad things, they do things we disapprove of, but they could still be heroes. Villains do things that we hate, but they are still sympathetic, you know? So I have an option here. I think I want to write about Stanley as a morally ambiguous character, because I think that would be a little bit more interesting. I don't know that people would say he's as ambiguous as Blanche, and because he's like just so terrible. So I think it'd be interesting to talk about he's not completely terrible. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and find moments that I can focus on and talk about the significance of each of these moments for enhancing Stanley's moral ambiguity. So for example, up here at the beginning, I talk about this idea that like all the races are like living next to each other in New Orleans, and it's this very multicultural place. And I am going to, that's probably a really offensive way of saying that, actually. I should have said multicultural. Anyway, I'm going to talk about how this shows Stanley's both working class background, his American background, but also potentially his Polish background. Like, I'm going to talk about how New Orleans is a place where Stanley can thrive. And that's something we like about Stanley. We like that he's like, I'm not a Polak. People from Poland are Polish. I'm an American. Like, that is like the fact that he is like standing up against like, I mean, like discrimination is something we like about him, right? So I want to set that up as being like, this is someplace where Stanley can thrive. Okay, and then here I go. They talk about Stanley and we are introduced to him like he's a real hunk. Down here, Blanche meets Stanley Hubba Hubba. The power games are not so off-putting at the beginning. In fact, Stanley is kind of set up, Stanley, as, I will use this term very loosely, but as a kind of love interest. Like, our worry about Stanley at the beginning is actually that Blanche is going to come and break up this marriage, right? That she's like, that he's like this kind of, the center of his being is centered on the pleasure with women or whatever. Like, again, he's a hunk, he's desirable. All right, so I'm going to go through each point and I'm going to try and say, how is this significant to Stanley being an ambiguous character? You choose one character. For each point you go through and you say, how is this significant for my character as being ambiguous? Maybe you can't say something about every bit of it. Stanley is pretty central to this, but maybe you can't, and that's okay. You can just kind of skip to the points that are going to be the most important. Okay, go ahead. I know you're fitting in a lot on this paper now. Okay. Now you have enough information. You have tons of information and you can write your thesis. When you're writing your thesis now, you are focusing on the theme, obviously, what theme this ambiguous character creates. But then you're also focusing on your points that you made that are most closely connected with the literary devices. So what I'm trying to look at here is I'm trying to find, okay, based on my theme, which I'm going to talk about how desire has a relationship to violence in my theme. I'm going to say that this book is about, actually, no, I think I'm going to say, talk about how this book is talking about how love and desire is not dependent on anything moral at all. I'll figure out how to say this, but like how it's not dependent on anything moral. Like you don't love somebody because they are a good person, and how everybody is kind of like playing this game between like being attracted to masculinity and femininity instead. And that both of those have this like kind of ambiguity to them, moral ambiguity to them. Okay, I'll figure out how to say that. But when I'm looking at this, I kind of see the way that Stanley shifts from being this like at the beginning seen as this potential love interest where he's at first introduced on screen and you're like, who's this, right? And same with Blanche. Blanche says, who's this? And then as it goes, even in that scene with Stella and then sexy time, I don't know what to write on board. Right there, even in that scene, it's like he was horrible, and it presents this juxtaposition between domestic violence and this then moment of like real vulnerability, and the way that the movie shows it, especially like with her walking down the stairs and like him sort of with the ripped shirt just being like, I'm so dependent on you now. It's like this way that he's vulnerable, right? But then as it goes, that we notice that vulnerability, what could be misconstrued as vulnerability, is actually a manipulation tactic. And we kind of see that in the scene where he rapes Blanche, and then in the last scene that's this kind of mirror image of the Stella scene where we now are seeing it completely different. So I want to talk about how his behaviors stay the same, but how our reaction to those behaviors change with more context. So that's a lot to try and fit into a thesis statement. This is not going to be a 40-minute paper, is it? Okay, but I got to somehow fit that in. You are going to try and show the same thing about how like things are developing through the literary strategies in your paper. So that was a long way of saying write a thesis about your book now. Yeah. Yes. Yes, yes. It's specific. to write this paper. I'm liking it. Okay, here's where mine is. Our perception of Stanley develops from moral ambiguity into pure villain. I'll need to play with that because I want to show that it's our perception that is developing as we see Stanley from morally ambiguous to pure villain, as the play first depicts him as powerful and attractive and then parallels scenes of abuse and desire, but Stanley remains a static character throughout. Williams shows us that while masculinity, I'm going to change that to gender roles, while gender roles are dangerous, our desire depends on ambiguity. So we can only really maintain our desire if we see even the villains as ambiguous. Okay, so I've got my thesis here. You've got your thesis now. Need another minute? Okay, another minute. Okay, while you're finishing that up, I am just curious about which books you wrote about. And I know some of you might have written about books that we didn't do for this class. Did anyone write about As I Lay Dying for this one? 2 of you. Okay. Anyone write about Streetcar like me? 3 of you. Anyone talk about King Lear for this one? Awesome. How about Pride and Prejudice for this one? How about Crime and Punishment? How about Lord of the Flies? Awesome. And then what other books did you do? Oh yes, Scarlet Pimpernel. I'm gonna call him Scarlet Pimpernel. Yeah.
Oh, for this specific one?
Yeah, for this problem. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I talked about Comedy of Errors, and because it's a play, can I talk about the portrayal of emotion?
Yeah. Yeah, you talk about it, I think, through the dialogue, right? Oh, through the actual portrayal, the actual performance of it. Yes, I think you'd want to root it in the dialogue to say like, oh, it uses this language, and so that obviously leads the actor to perform it this way. Yeah, for sure. And just like with Streetcar Named Desire, you want to be careful and not talk about the movie version solely, but you could talk about performance as it is through the dialogue. That's really tricky. All right, awesome. We're going to do a couple more timed thesis statements. So I've got some others in here. Let's do number 2. You can write about whatever book you want to write about for this. Okay, you've got 3 minutes to write a thesis about whatever book you want to write about. So it can be the same one you just did or something else. Okay, in some works of literature, a character who appears briefly or does not appear at all is a significant presence, either from your own reading from the list. Choose a work of fiction in which a character affects action, theme, or the development from other characters. Then, in a well-written essay, analyze the effect of this character and how it contributes to an interpretation of the work as a whole. So a character who barely is in the book or play, or who isn't there at all.
What about like a deadline?
Oh, definitely. Okay, go.
Well, it is, but
Yeah.
I didn't know if it's something like that, or like, Leif could Leif something.
It could also be about Leif, yeah.
Or the minister.
Or the Reverend Whitfield, yeah.
There's a lot.
Be a good one.
Did I tell you about the deadline?
You only have 2 minutes. 2 minutes 40 seconds. Write a thesis.
We will talk about what we're gonna need for the test tomorrow.
Yes. Hey, Ethan, I put this in your folder over there. Yes. Got it. Who got their thesis in 3 minutes? That's amazing. Okay. Excellent.
I wanted to one from all of my books and I got to 2.5.
If you go into the major work section of the test, I would say spend 5 to 8 minutes planning out what you're going to write and the rest of the time writing. So 3 minutes was a little extreme, but I wanted to push you there. Who wrote about As I Lay Dying for this one? 1, 2, 3. Who wrote about Streetcar Named Desire for this one? 3. Who wrote about King Lear for this one? Who wrote about Pride and Prejudice for this one? Who did you write about for Pride and Prejudice? Oh, okay, that's a good one. Crime and Punishment for this one? You talked about the dead pawnbroker for that. That would be interesting. Lord of the Flies for this one?
The dead bodies.
Lord of the Flies could be a lot of different characters, I think. It could be the guy at the very end. It could be the Ralph's father who's not in it, whatever. You want to write about Scarlet Pimpernel for this one too?
No, I wrote about my other one, The Secret Garden.
Oh, Secret Garden would be actually perfect for that.
They have like a lot of
Yeah,
have like a secret.
for her parents. Any others that I missed up here? Everybody? Yeah.
I wrote a written course.
Oh, the C.S. Lewis book. I don't know that one, but I'm gonna trust you. Okay, I was just keeping track because I wanted to know. It makes sense because these are my favorite books that I teach, that these are the books that I spent the most amount of time on, that you know the best, that I made you like. Let's talk about the test tomorrow. So if you're taking the test tomorrow, you need to bring black pens or blue pens. Bring multiple because you might run out of ink and pens are unreliable. So black or blue pens, dark blue, not light blue. You can't have any sort of, I checked on like a smartwatch, you can't have any kind of like device that connects, there we go, to the internet. Even if you've disconnected it, they don't want them in there. You can bring water or snacks, but you can't have it at your desk with you, but you can do it during the break time. Yes.
We can't have water at our desk. Like,
You can't have water at your desk. Yeah, I know it's gonna be hard. And I know she had a cough too. Yeah. But so it goes, the order goes like this. You take a multiple choice for an hour. You have a 15-minute break or so, 15 minutes to go do whatever, get your drinks, whatever. And then you have all 3 essays in 2 hours. I am going to ask them if they can do it's been 40 minutes. We suggest you move to the next essay. I'll see what their answer is and I'll let you know tomorrow morning. But I'm hoping they can do that. If not, you just keep track of it yourself. I do suggest you spend 40 minutes on each. There is no points for finishing quickly, and they're looking for depth, right? So if you finish the essay and you're like, wow, I did that in 20 minutes, great. Pause, think, what else could I add to this essay? And you can include some footnotes. So let's say this is the end of your sentence right here. You can do a little 1, you can put it at the bottom of your essay, and you can add some analysis. So that you're actually using up your time. Now, if you get to, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, or sorry, that's a long time. It's been an hour and 50 minutes. You have 10 minutes left of the essay section. I wouldn't necessarily stress about that. But if you've got a good portion of time left at the end, you probably didn't write enough. Okay, I am going to be here at 7 with muffins. You can show up, and this does not apply to the people not taking the test, because I'll have your muffins on the day of your test. So you can show up at between 7 and 7:30 into this room, and I will, we can have a muffin, I'll have some juice, whatever, give you a sugar boost before the test. We have to be down in the tech atrium by 7:30. So if you do not want a muffin, I'll see you down in the tech atrium at exactly 7:30. If you get there at 8, they're not going to let you take the test. It officially starts at 8, but they want you there at 7:30. So, yes, Sammy. I don't know. So get there at 7:30. Yeah. Did you have a question? Okay. Yeah, she was just clear, like, if they show up at 8, they don't get to take it. Any other, what was it? Oh, I'm sure they'll do that. Yeah, but maybe don't push it. Yeah, but maybe if you're running a few minutes late, don't get yourself into a tizzy. You'll be okay. Yeah. So I'm told tech atrium. If there's any sort of difference, we'll corral you over to the library. But yeah, it should be tech atrium. Spirit Bowl is going to be going on at the same time, but that's on the other side of the school, and so I don't think they'll be interrupting. They shouldn't have announcements during. We should be good. Does anyone have any other questions about the logistics of it, or are you so excited to get it done with for those of you taking it tomorrow? And the rest of you are so excited to have a couple more weeks before you have to take it. All right. Well, then I will see you tomorrow morning. We're done. I don't need any of this stuff that we did today. It was just for practice. So.
Pictures of our cards.
Yeah, on Canvas, that works.
Okay.
Unless you brought them. Did you bring them? Submit pictures, will you? That'd help me. Thank you.
Sorry I was late. I had car trouble.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so is there anything that I should